Welcome, friends, and let me tell you the compelling story of a young woman's journey to uncover the truth and maybe even find a little love in the heart of Manhattan. Enjoy the story. Allison Rodriguez bolted upright in bed, her heart racing. The sun streamed through the bedroom window of her Manhattan apartment, but she felt a deep sense of unease. Just then, her mother Olivia burst into the room, her face etched with grief. "Allison, honey." Olivia sat heavily on the bed, taking Allison's hands. "It's your father. He passed away last night. A heart attack." The room spun around Allison as the news sank in. Her father, George Rodriguez, larger-than-life restaurateur, was gone? It couldn't be. Tears spilled down her cheeks as Olivia enveloped her in a tight hug. "He'd been dealing with some issues lately, health problems he didn't want to burden you with," Olivia explained gently, stroking Allison's hair. "You know how proud he was." Allison nodded numbly, her mind reeling. She had just seen her father last month when she graduated from the prestigious Culinary Institute of America. He had been so full of life then, beaming with pride as she accepted her diploma. How could he be gone? Over the next few days, as Allison helped her mother sort through George's things, she made a shocking discovery. Her father had secretly opened a restaurant in her name, Allison's Bistro, but it was struggling badly. Stacks of unpaid bills and angry letters from vendors painted a grim picture. "I don't understand," Allison said, shaking her head in disbelief as she pored over the papers. "Why wouldn't Dad tell me about this? I could have helped." Olivia sighed. "You know your father. He wanted you to follow your own path, not feel obligated to clean up his messes." But Allison, with her newly minted culinary degree and burning desire to make her father proud, knew she had to do something. She hatched a plan to go undercover at Allison's Bistro as a new hire to get to the bottom of the restaurant's troubles. Olivia reluctantly agreed, on the condition that Allison check in with her regularly. "I just lost your father. I can't lose you too," Olivia said fiercely. Allison hugged her mom tightly. "You won't lose me. I promise." On her first day undercover at Allison's Bistro, Allison walked into a war zone. She arrived just in time to witness a screaming match between the head chef, Ian Thompson, and Stephen Foster, a line cook. "I told you not to refuse that seafood delivery," Ian shouted, his face mottled with rage. "I don't care if it smelled a little off. We can still use it." "I'm not serving rotten fish to our customers," Stephen shot back. Though younger than Ian, he didn't back down. "It's unsafe and unethical." Allison watched wide-eyed from the kitchen doorway. She'd expected issues, but not a blatant disregard for food safety. Squaring her shoulders, she stepped into the fray. "Hi there, I'm Allie, the new dishwasher," she said brightly. Ian whirled on her. "You're hired. Get to work," he growled. As Allison tied on an apron and plunged her hands into the soapy water, Stephen sidled up to her. "Bold move, starting today of all days," he said with a wry smile. "I'm Stephen, by the way." "Nice to meet you," Allison replied, returning his smile. She liked Stephen instantly. He seemed to be one of the few people here with a moral compass. Over the next week, as Allison scrubbed pots and watched the kitchen staff intently, the restaurant's issues came into alarming focus. Not only were they using subpar, even spoiled ingredients, but something far more nefarious was happening. Mysterious boxes arrived in the dead of night, only to vanish by morning. Rumors swirled among the staff about illegal activity, and anyone who dared to question Ian about the boxes or his unscrupulous sourcing was fired on the spot. Everyone except Stephen. "He knows something about Ian," confided Nina, a waitress, as she and Allison huddled in the walk-in refrigerator one afternoon. "Some secret that keeps Ian from firing him." Allison's journalist instincts tingled. Later, as she and Stephen worked side by side prepping vegetables, she tried to coax the truth from him. "So what's your secret?" she asked casually, keeping her eyes on the carrots she was chopping. "Why does Ian let you get away with standing up to him?" Stephen glanced around furtively before leaning in close. "Let's just say, if you take a peek inside those boxes, you might find something very interesting." Allison's heart raced. She knew she was getting close to the truth, but the thought of what she might find in those boxes terrified her. Allison waited until the restaurant closed for the night before putting her plan into action. She crept down to the basement storage room, using the keys she'd swiped from Ian's office. With trembling hands, she pried open a large wooden crate tucked in the back corner. Her breath caught in her throat. The box was filled with bottles of expensive-looking liquor: Johnny Walker Blue Label, Macallan 25, Dom Perignon Champagne. But something wasn't right. Upon closer inspection, Allison realized the labels were fake, cheap knockoffs of the real thing. Well, what do we have here? Allison whirled around to see Ian looming in the doorway, a cruel sneer on his face. Looks like we've got a little thief, he said, advancing on her. Caught red-handed stealing from the boss. I'm not stealing anything, Allison said, standing her ground. But you're sure stealing from our customers by serving them counterfeit booze. Ian let out a humorless laugh. Sweetheart, you have no idea who you're messing with, and now you're going to pay for it. He grabbed Allison roughly by the arm and dragged her upstairs, ignoring her protests. The next thing Allison knew, the police were bursting through the front doors, slapping handcuffs on her wrists as Ian played the innocent victim. She's been stealing money from the register for weeks, Ian told the cops, laying it on thick. Probably to feed a drug habit, I'd imagine. That's a lie, Allison cried. But it was too late. She was shoved into the back of a squad car and whisked down to the station. Allison paced the holding cell, her mind whirling. How could this have happened? She'd only wanted to get to the truth, to save her father's restaurant. But instead, she'd landed herself in jail. She prayed her mother would forgive her reckless choices. Just then, the cell door clanged open. Olivia rushed in, her eyes blazing with a mixture of worry and fury. She caught Allison in a fierce embrace. "Oh, my baby, what have you gotten yourself into?" Olivia murmured. "Mom, I'm so sorry," Allison said, choking back sobs. "I was just trying to help. But Ian, he's up to something illegal. The restaurant is a front." Olivia's eyes hardened. "Don't you worry. I'll handle Ian." She marched over to the booking desk, where a bored-looking sergeant glanced up. "I want my daughter released. Now," Olivia demanded, "or I'll have the district attorney crawling so far up your precinct's ass, you'll be tasting subpoenas for a month." The sergeant paled. He knew Olivia Rodriguez wasn't a woman to be trifled with. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Give me just a moment to process her paperwork." An hour later, Allison stepped out of the police station, breathing in the crisp night air. But her ordeal was far from over. She and her mother rode in grim silence back to Allison's bistro. It was time to confront Ian and end his reign of terror once and for all. Ian was in the manager's office when Allison and Olivia barged in, his face contorting in shock and outrage. "What the hell are you doing here?" he snarled at Allison. "I thought I had you arrested." "Well, you thought wrong," Allison said coldly. "Seems like the cops were more interested in your little counterfeiting scheme once I clued them in." Ian lunged for Allison, but Olivia stepped swiftly between them like a mama bear protecting her cub. "Don't you dare lay a hand on my daughter," Olivia hissed. "The only place you'll be putting your hands is behind your back when the police slap on the cuffs." Just then, Stephen burst into the office with two uniformed officers in tow. They were dragging a handcuffed man Allison had never seen before. "This is Sergey, Ian's accomplice," Stephen explained. "I caught him in the alley out back trying to load the rest of the counterfeit booze into his van." He turned to Allison, his eyes shining with pride and admiration. "I never would have figured it out without you. You were so brave to come here and expose the truth." Allison's heart swelled at his words. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said softly. "You were the one fighting for what's right all along." As the officers led a sputtering Ian and Sergey out to the waiting police cars, Allison turned to face the rest of the stunned restaurant staff gathering in the dining room. "I know this is a shock to all of you," she began, "but my name is Allison Rodriguez. George Rodriguez was my father, and this restaurant is his legacy. I won't let it be tarnished by greed and crime." She squared her shoulders, feeling a rush of purpose and determination. "From this day forward, I will be taking over as owner and manager. And I promise you, together we will turn Allison's Bistro into the thriving, respected establishment it was always meant to be, one that honors my father's memory." The staff broke into applause, their faces alight with hope. Allison glanced over at her mother, who was watching with tears of pride in her eyes. As the police cars pulled away into the night and the staff dispersed to begin cleaning up the restaurant for a fresh start, Allison wandered outside to the patio. She felt overwhelmed but excited for what the future would bring. Just then, Stephen appeared and sat down next to her. "There's something I need to tell you," he said seriously. "I knew who you were from the second you walked in. The truth is, I met your dad years ago." Allison's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "You did? How?" Stephen smiled at the memory. "It was at Coney Island when I was just a kid. I was too scared to get off this ride I'd waited hours to go on. But your dad, he was there with you that day. He climbed up and helped me down, made sure I got back safe to my folks. We stayed in touch after that. He was always looking out for me." Tears pricked Allison's eyes. It sounded just like her father, always helping others, never asking for anything in return. "Working here was my way of repaying him," Stephen continued, "and maybe a way to get close to you." He took Allison's hand, his touch sending tingles up her spine. "What do you say? You think the new boss might have time to grab dinner with me sometime?" Allison laughed and squeezed his hand. "I think she just might. Though you may have to help test new menu items. For quality control purposes, of course." Stephen grinned. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As they sat together in the twinkling glow of the patio lights, Allison felt a profound sense of peace wash over her. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but she also knew her father would be proud of her, proud of how she was fighting for truth, justice, and the family business. With her mother's love, Stephen's support, and her own fierce determination, Allison knew she could overcome anything. Her father's legacy would live on, as bright and bold as the city skyline glittering before her. A new chapter was beginning, one filled with promise, adventure, and maybe even a little romance. Allison couldn't wait to see what it would bring.